Good evening and welcome to this very special show. Fuel is certainly on fire because there is no respite from the fuel shock for the economy. Petrol and diesel prices were hiked today for the 15th straight day, despite a steady decline in crude oil globally for the past 5 days. As consumers sweat it out, the government, both in the centre and the state, continue to speak in generalities, promising to offer long-term solutions but unwilling to share the load. Kerala seems to have, however, taken the lead to curb spiralling fuel prices. In an exclusive chat with your channel right here, Kerala Finance Minister Thomas Isaac did admit that his state is looking to give up the incremental tax collection due to rising fuel prices. What are the long-term solutions? When will those solutions come to fore? And how exactly should fuel be priced in this country? We've got four very, very special guests joining us right here. I've got Mr. Arish Sharma, the former chairman of ONGC. I've also got Anant Narayan, money market expert and somebody who understands the macroeconomy very well, representing the BJP, and somebody who understands the energy sector extremely well is Narendra Taneja, and Adil Singh Boparai represents the Congress party here. So thanks each one of you for being with us. Let me just first begin with you, Mr. Taneja. The rally in oil prices that took Brent to $80 a barrel seems to be on its way down. It's down to about $74 a barrel now. And yet the 15th day of price hike was seen in India. What explains that? I mean, why are we going on seeing crude prices falling globally and Indian prices going up steadily? What explains this? Is there a mismatch? Is there a disconnect? Or is this purely being insensitive?
I didn't hear your question. I'm sorry. It's very poor audio. Practically no audio. Could you ask them to fix it first, please?
Mr. Taneja, the rally in oil prices that had taken crude to $80 a barrel has seen prices reverse, and those prices are down to $74 a barrel as we speak today. What explains the 15th day of price hike then in India? Okay, I think we've lost Mr. Taneja on the phone line there. I will take it across to Mr. Arish Sharma. And Mr. Arish Sharma, you're somebody who understands the sector very well. $80 a barrel is what crude was, and we were all talking about fuel on fire and how India couldn't have done anything. But now it looks like prices are on the downward trend. At least they've retreated to $74 a barrel. And yet we have seen a price rise for the 15th day in a row, both for petrol and diesel. What explains that according to you?
I feel by this time the common man understands, and media has been educating them if they don't understand, because just before the Karnataka elections, there was 19 days. There was no rise in the prices of petroleum products, even though the crude price in the international market had been going up. As a result, these marketing companies, their margins had gone negative. When now, immediately after that, every day they have been trying to recover those margins, and that explains that despite the fact now they you can say that the adjustment, whatever was to be done by the companies, perhaps may not be complete, and they continue to do those adjustments to see that their negative margins are come to a level where they have the benchmarking which is allowed to them, and with their own margins they have been to in that direction. They would have been raising the prices. That is what I can comprehend from the total situation. I think nothing else. So let's hope the prices do not go up further as of now.
What you say, nothing else, I think the opposition will jump to the fore and say this is what an insensitive government looks like. But I'm not going to go to the politicians just yet. Is Mr. Taneja back? Can I go across to him? Okay, he's not back as yet. All right, so let me just then get a quick voice from Anant Narayan. And Anant Narayan, you know, the large possibility was that there could be an excise duty cut, given that there was one that happened in October when prices had spiked. and the entire benefit of excise was never passed on to the consumer. So the broad expectation was that excise duty will be cut. And of course, then came this whole fiscal pragmatism, that how there should be no knee-jerk reaction and we'll have to wait and watch how the situation unfolds. Is this really fiscal pragmatism that's making the government hold on to no call at all on excise and let a price hike happen unrelentlessly?
Well, Supriya, there is a fiscal imperative and there's no question about it. And just to put things in perspective, last year the average price of crude was $58 a barrel and dollar rupee was 64. This year so far, and it's still very, very early days this fiscal, crude average price is about 74, Brent average price is about 74, and dollar rupee average is about 66 and change. So that's a 30% increase in the rupee value of crude compared to last fiscal year. Now, if you follow the same formula that you followed the last year for pricing diesel, petrol, etc., at the petrol pump, then obviously the price has to be substantially higher than it was the last year. Now, this is where I think the balancing act has to come through. Clearly, the oil industry has become a huge revenue spinner for the government, and both the state governments and the central government over the last few years. One thing which probably was the right thing to do over the last few years was, as the price of crude oil came down, not all of it was passed on to the consumer. Instead, this was used to build up a buffer on the taxation front to be used on the fiscal side, hopefully towards investments and such like. But now that the the price of crude is going up again, I think what you're saying is absolutely bang on. It's high time that this stop becoming a money spinner as much as it is to the government. And what is even more ironical is some part of these taxes actually are on a VAT or an ad valorem basis, which means as the value of crude goes up, the state government VATs, for instance, tend to go up as well. So it's actually state governments making more money, and customs duties going up on a pro rata basis as well, making more money even as the common man suffers. I think at some stage, clearly there has to be some fiscal giveaway. There has to be some let up, and all of the oil prices hikes cannot be sent on to the consumer. And we should be able to hope that oil prices will mean revert, come down to a level which is more bearable for global economies. In the meantime, the fiscal has to take the cushion, but obviously then it means there has to be choices made somewhere else. Don't forget, this is an election year where the government wants to spend on MSPs and God knows what are the doles that will come out of the farm sector. So this is going to be a very challenging year all round, both for centre and for state governments.
Right. Now, that's an important point, that, everything can't be passed on to the consumer, and that's what a fiscally pragmatic government does. I grant the government that point. What I don't grant the government is that when prices are falling, why are immediate measures not being taken? Why is that relentless price hike continuing? Let me take it across to Narendra Taneja. And Mr. Taneja, as an energy expert and as a politician, you will agree with me when I say that that balancing act is required. I mean, somebody as fiscally prudent as Anant Narayan today says that there is a time to do to do fiscal management, and there is a time to pass on some benefits to the consumer, and the time is perhaps now. What is holding you back is really my big question. You can't, the government can't under the garb of saying long-term solution. When will those long-term solutions happen? Will they also happen over the long term?
Well, two points here. Number one, the prices are falling, as we know, internationally, of crude oil as well as petrol, diesel, and that will start reflecting, in the coming couple of weeks on the petrol pumps across the country as well. Because as you know, the cycle is about 20 days to 30 days, depending on which parcel, which company, and which refiner, and so on and so forth. So that's, I think, just wait for a few more days and you will start seeing the, reflection of that on petrol pump across the country. Number 2 point, you see, the point is that what the government is trying to do is to come out with a kind of more comprehensive solution. If you cut, let's say for the sake of discussion, 1 rupee on excise, you probably would be back to square one within no time, maybe 4 or 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, because the states, we don't know whether states are going to listen to you or not. We saw last October when the government, brought down excise, but almost, except Goa, all states, they just refused to follow the central directives on the issue. So the question is that, they have their own reasons. They try to explain in their own way, like Mr. Modi did from Bihar today. So we have to work out a solution in consultation with all stakeholders, particularly the states. And that's what is taking time. You know, consultation with the states, consultations within the government, so that we come out with something which is sustainable. Not something that, for instance, stays just for a day or 2 and 3, and after that after getting headlines for a couple of days, then we are back to the same thing. It's not going to help. We know the problem. We know the consumers, are feeling the pain, and we are with the consumers, and absolutely we understand the prices are too high. We have said it repeatedly, and I say it again today.
Right.
But at the same time, in terms of solutions, we have to work out in such a way that solution is sustainable, and we are working exactly on that.
Mr. Taneja, I don't envy your job today, because as an energy expert, you know that there is elbow room to cut it. As a spokesperson of the BJP, I know you can't say we should do that. But I will take this across to the Congress party, and I will come back to you before I go across to the two experts on my show. Adil Singh Boparai, Kerala today has taken the lead and said that they will not avail the additional VAT revenue from future price hikes. That's perhaps the least a sensitive, democratically elected government must do. I'm just curious to know, why is BJP, and that question I'm going to ask Mr. Taneja just after you, or the Congress government not doing it? You've got government in Punjab, you've got government in Mizoram, in Puducherry, you've got government in Karnataka now, you're an ally. Why are your governments not acting on fuel? Or is it only the central government's responsibility to cut excise?
Supriya, the Congress state governments have advocated including petroleum products within the ambit of the GST. The BJP is in over 20 states across the country. Why doesn't the GST Council take a decision? Why doesn't the Finance Minister formally move a proposal to bring petroleum products within the ambit of the GST? And you will see this will alleviate the sufferings of the consumers today. But let's see this entire issue in the right concept, in the right context. In 2012, when the international crude oil prices stood at $120 a barrel, the retail price of petrol was ₹70. Post 2014, international crude oil prices plummeted. They almost came down to $30 a barrel. However, this insensitive Modi administration did not pass on this windfall benefit to the consumer. Today, the prices have again started to rise, and today it stands at about $75 a barrel. The problem with this government is, because of their economic policies, they floundered. They raked in more than 10,000 crore rupees, 10 lakh crore rupees on account of these taxes, and the central excise duty per litre on petrol stands at over 20 rupees today. And I would like to point out to what Mr. Modi himself had said in 2012. This is a very famous tweet of Mr. Modi, which perhaps they'll try to disown today, when he said that massive hike in petrol prices is a prime example of the failure. This is what Mr. Modi said in 2012, that this is actually a failure of the Congress-led UPA government, and this will put a burden of hundreds of crores on Gujarat. Now, you can't have two sets of rules. If
Adil,
today the petrol and diesel prices have hit an all-time high, the prices have never been higher in the history of independent India. Therefore, this clearly tantamounts to a failure of the Modi administration.
Okay. Adil Singh Boparai, you've made a point there. You've quoted the Prime Minister from way back in 2014. And Mr. Taneja, I don't just want you to respond to that. But, I think for the benefit of our viewers, the stance that you take, or the stand that you take, really depends on where you sit in politics. So when you are in the treasury benches, you can justify it, but when you're in the opposition, you attack the government of the day. But I have a quick point to make. Your spokespersons, your leaders, your ministers, they tell us very proudly that they are in 20 states of India. That's how invincible you are. But how come none of those 20 states are willing to take a call and give some respite on the taxes that they're making out of oil? I mean, are they so out of hand? Are they not listening to the central leadership at all, Mr. Taneja? Is that what you want us to believe?
No, you see that we have to understand one thing. When it comes to, these states, BJP government, absolutely, no doubt about it. But they are elected on local manifesto. And when it comes to revenues, let me share one thing. You may be whichever party. If you are the center, when it comes to revenue stream, when it comes to money matters, yes, they don't listen. They don't listen because they have to manage their economy based on the ground realities where they actually are responsible for governance. And they don't listen it. Whether you can look at the history, and that's how the Constitution basically has provided. Let's not forget one thing. Under the Constitution, central government cannot issue a diktat to state government, even if the state government belongs to the same party which is in power at the center. You can't. It's anti-constitution. So they take their own, they make their own decision, they have their own, when it comes to money matters, they just don't listen. That's the answer. And quick point I want to make is to my Congress friend, you see 2010, comparing 2010 with 2014, 20 is wrong, because we are comparing decontrolled regime with a controlled regime. Entire economics in controlled regime is different. 2014 forward is all for diesel particularly is a decontrolled regime, and for petrol 2010 of course came into effect. Now the point here is Mr. Chidambaram has repeatedly said he has got some recipe, some secret formula. If you apply that, price of petrol will come down by 25 rupees per litre. Please, Mr. Chidambaram, go pick up a phone, talk with the Chief Minister of Karnataka and Punjab, and bring down the price of petrol and diesel by 25 rupees. We'll be very happy to learn from you.
Just before I go any further, Mr. Taneja and Adil Singh Boparai, just give me a second. I will first talk and then all of you can come in. I want the graphics that were on the channel up back on the screen right now, because that tells you the hollow talk of political parties. The highest price of petrol and diesel, or the highest tax on petrol is in Mumbai, Thane and Navi Mumbai, in rest of Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh, all these places controlled by the BJP. Andhra Pradesh controlled by the TDP and Punjab controlled by the Congress. That's the highest level of taxes we are seeing in the country, and they are under you, the BJP, and under the Congress party. And please don't give me the spiel about how state governments are independent and they take their own independent calls. We know how it works. We do not need directives from the central government. There's something called moral responsibility, and that is what center tells the state. But anyways, I don't want to expose both the BJP and the Congress any further. I'll take it across to Anand Narayana. Anand, you've listened to the Congress, you've listened to the BJP. Is there so much hollowness in what they're saying? Not just the, and I don't mean these two spokespersons, really, they're very, very eminent gentlemen. I really mean their parties. I mean, they are talking, they cannot forego of a minuscule part of the revenue that comes on account of higher crude oil prices, and they want to bring petrol under the GST, where they will have to forego a lot more. I mean, this is absolute hollow talk if you ask me. The best way to dissuade or to distract the conversation is, we'll put petrol under the GST, we want to, the other side is not listening. It looks to me this is a very safe excuse. Anand?
Well, without getting into the politics, Supriya, I think what you're saying is spot on. 2012-13 was very, very different. At that point of time, the excise that we collected on petroleum products was almost equal to the subsidy that we paid for keeping prices low. Now, what has happened since 2014 is, because oil prices came down and because we did probably a better way of actually passing on the prices, it's now become a huge money spinner for the government in more ways than one. Between the state and the central government, we collect customs, we collect excise, we collect VAT in the state level. Plus, don't forget, the oil companies pay taxes on whatever income they have, and they pay a dividend as well. Put all this together, and the total collections done by both central and state government for the finances is about 2.8% of GDP. That's a tremendous number. It's become a money spinner for all our governments. Now, it was okay to have it as a money spinner as long as you were keeping the prices at a reasonable level and not letting the country becoming guzzlers of oil. Don't let the drop in crude oil prices to allow us to go and splurge on oil and import more and more of it. Keep the demand under check. That was absolutely valid. That was a good strategy to have, and divert the funds into productive uses. But now that it's becoming a tax on the economy as a whole and on the common person, I think it's incumbent upon the state government and the central governments to come together and try and reduce the burden on the common man. And this is realpolitik. Forget about, economics and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Pure realpolitik requires that the price be brought down. And I think the governments will do it. Probably one thing they're waiting for is to have a bigger impact and do this closer to the next round of state elections towards the end of the year. Because who remembers the October cut of 2 rupees or whatever, which happened, many, many months ago. Do it at a time when it's remembered as bringing relief. But, that's probably a very narrow way of doing it. For the economy's sake, I think it's high time that we took the right choices and made sure this doesn't become an incremental tax on the economy.
No, I kind of agree with you. I think everything needs to be done. The government wants to do it with a big splash. I wonder if they have the elbow room to wait for so long, though. for Madhya Pradesh, for Rajasthan, for Chhattisgarh. But Mr. Sharma, I'll come to you. And there is this new narrative, this new dialogue that's doing rounds in the power circles of New Delhi, that there is perhaps a case to impose a special upstream profit tax for the windfall gains that upstream companies like ONGC make. Is that a fair assessment of the situation? Is that a prudent move given the fact that the government is not willing to move on excise, but companies like ONGC and Oil India and all of those have made big profits, and so it's best to extract it out of them by putting a special upstream profit tax?
Well, Supriya, you have made a very correct observation. I also hear not only from media, even otherwise also, that government has been contemplating, seriously thinking of trying to mop up the upside, whatever the upstream companies, ONGC, Oil India, KN, etc., they are having, to take that away in whatever form you call it, windfall tax or a levy. Tax is levied on the profits, but it could be only a levy. But to tell you, that will tantamount, it will be a retrograde step. It will tantamount to rolling back whatever decision government had taken to deregulate the sector, that the prices are totally deregulated, and whatever the mechanism, the formulation that has been given to these oil companies, they will continue to operate. And based on that declaration from the government, these the investors who put their money into the shares of these companies, they are all listed companies, they have invested. Now, for going back on that, on the part of the government, I don't think that will be fair. I don't think from governance point of view that will be fair. I feel that should be the last thing that the government should implement. They should think of the ways and means. And look, there are, it is also said, a poverty has to be shared. If a situation like that comes, so let all stakeholders contribute. First of all, Anant mentioned about this VAT going up silently when the crude prices go up. Customs duty on crude silently going up when the crude price is going up. They have to be kept at a level which the government sees that's appropriate. And the government, when these 9 doses of excise increases were given, time and again it was said, if the crude prices go up, they will give a cut. So that has also to be honored, not entirely, partially. And then, whatever the margins, these dealers, downstream companies, upstream companies, if they want to do, everybody had to contribute. But that will be coming back a total regulation of the sector, and that sort of deregulation does not, remain, in force. So that is
Exactly.
a call to be taken, and let us see. I'm sure the policy makers have been contemplating. So what is the long-term interest of the sector?
Right.
I think they should take care of the long-term interest rather than short-term.
Okay. The long-term interest should be taken care of, but that long-term solution has to come in the short term is my simple point at the beginning of this debate. That long-term solution can't come over a long term is all that I'm trying to say here. But Narendra Taneja, the point that R.S. Sharma made is a very valid point. This whole talk about a special upstream profit tax on explorers like ONGC, this defies the whole basis, the principle, the reason why deregulation was done. You don't want that opaque regime. And to the Congress spokesperson, I will say, yes, prices were low when crude had hit 120, 130 in your regime, but the reality was that you were paying through your nose to these oil marketing companies. You were subsidizing them by paying them, and ONGC was giving them money. So, money was exchanging hands. You were holding the nose from the other end of your face and perhaps not the front. But Narendra Taneja, there's a very broad point that R.S. Sharma makes, and that point is that if you go and do what is being contemplated in New Delhi, then you're defying the whole basis of deregulation. You then can't put up your hand and say that we've deregulated fuel completely, because that will distort deregulation, will it not?
Honestly, I don't understand where all these reports are coming from. I really don't understand. I haven't heard such talks, at least in the corridors. I haven't heard them. All I have heard is that, we have reformed already and we want to reform further. That's the message we are taking across the world and trying to convince companies like ExxonMobil, Saudi Aramco, British Petroleum, Statoil, Gazprom, come and invest here because we have reformed so much and we plan to reform even further. So if we go back on the reforms that we have already carried out, then these companies are not going to come. And we need investment. In upstream alone, we need $30 billion investment. So I don't know where these coming from. If you ask me personally, if there is any such thought gaining traction, gaining momentum, I think is unwise. We are very ill-advised. In my personal opinion, it should not be done. If anybody is actually thinking of such a measure seriously, it would be very, very costly thing to do. Because all these companies, today the fact is that all the biggies are coming to India. They are now coming. They are coming because we are reforming. We are making our upstream, midstream, downstream world class, reform, modernize. That's why they are coming. So if just for 10,000 crore, 50,000 crore, we decide to put the whole thing on backtrack and in the process compromise $30 billion investment on upstream alone, and if you include downstream, in total about $70 billion investment, do you think that government should be doing that? My own assessment is no, and in my personal opinion, this kind of idea should not even be listened to or entertained.
All right. I have a quick last word and I'll go to Adil Singh Boparai on this. And Adil, while we keep talking about excise and VAT being cut at the level of state and will your government do it, the BJP, will it follow? Will you support the government if it goes for asset sales, the big non-core asset sales, instead of this whole excise sham? Let's forget about this. Let's go for asset sales. You need money. This is how we do it. Is the Congress party going to support that?
Supriya, such an answer to such a question cannot be given in the abstract. It depends on the government's policy and then the Congress party will take an appropriate call. But let me come to the primary point. The problem today is that in 2013, the central excise duty stood at about 10 rupees. As soon as Mr. Modi came to power, the central excise increased to about 18 rupees. So this government is actually taxing the citizens more and there's no delivery. Mr. Taneja was pointing out and naming multinationals, international multinationals, but in the past 4 years, no international multinational has actually invested hard tangible money in oil exploration in India because they're very bearish about Mr. Modi's economic policy. Coming to a sustainable solution to this problem, we will support the government if it is
you don't know that.
Bringing
Supriya, you have to allow me to correct
within the ambit of the GST.
The gentleman does know.
That is a sustainable solution. The government should moot that proposal.
Let him finish.
The finance ministry should moot that proposal and we will support that proposal in the GST Council. The problem today is that this is a government which suffers from policy paralysis and there is lack of talent. Let me repeat, Mr. Modi's administration suffers from lack of talent. And that is why you come out with policies like a flawed GST and demonetization and the country has to suffer the economic policies of this government.
But Supriya, do correct. He does know.
Flawed GST,
he does know. Please correct. Your viewers will get the wrong picture.
On the show. No, lots of people are coming to India, let me just say that. But I think the reality is that while the Congress party keeps blaming the BJP for GST, let me please finish.
He does know 12 billion in refining alone.
GST was not put in your original draft as well. That's what I want to tell the Congress party. But I think I've completely run out of time here. It's an important issue. It's a heated issue. It's an emotional issue because petrol and diesel prices impact each one of us. I think the government runs the risk of sounding seemingly insensitive to the Aam Aadmi's demand, especially when crude oil prices are falling globally from $80 to $74 a barrel. Why are our prices high? Why are our pump prices the highest they have been? That's the question. Will the excise sham be taken away? Will revenue come from other places? Will the Congress state governments perhaps follow and take a cue from Kerala is the big question. Thanks very much for being with us.